right after Confluent is Solace. So we will be joined by Tom Fairbairn. Tom leads Solace's distributed ledger practice. So all things blockchain, I guess, and he has helped customers understand and implement event distribution and sourcing strategies. He is a distinguished engineer with Solace, and he'll be talking to us about the Event API products and maximizing the value of your EDA. So Tom, over to you.
Thank you very much, Akhil. Excuse me. Welcome, everyone, to this afternoon session in the connected data stream. As Akhil mentioned, my name's Tom Fairbairn. I'm a distinguished engineer at Solace. Solace is a company that helps customers adopt this event-driven architecture idea, this event-driven technology. If you were in Suraj's session, he quite elegantly explained why that's a good idea. For those of you who joined fresh here, I'll just revise some of those event-driven concepts. This is a very quick introduction. I've only got a short amount of time, so I'm going to go quite quickly. But the good news is you can see this in action. Straight after this section, my colleagues Vidya and Tazif are going to be actually showing you how to do this in a workshop. So please feel free to head over after this discussion here and see this actually in action. Great stuff. Let's get started. Okay. So I'm hoping since we're at API Days, most of you are familiar with the idea of API products. But what I want to talk about is event API products. Okay, so how do the two relate to each other? How do you use them? What's the value of them? Excuse me. Then I'm going to talk a bit more about how you can actually create these things, event API products. You know, you're used to the idea of creating your own API products. How are you going to create event API products? And I'm going to show some of the details of how you can actually implement them so that you can derive business value from these events that are flowing throughout your organization. Great. Okay, so let's just have a quick level set. We're used to REST APIs, right? And of course, the classic thing we talk about is an e-commerce website. Everybody talks about that. You know, the schedule of this session with his wicked sense of humor has put me on after Confluent. We talk about the same kind of example. So, you know, we have an order management system that's running our e-commerce website. Typically, how the customer is going to interact with that is over a REST API, right? This is request response. As a customer, I've got to place an order, and I'm expecting reasonably quickly back a confirmation that you've got that order. That's a great example of a synchronous REST API interaction. Now, event-driven APIs take that and kind of spin it on its head. So the customer here is calling an API and expecting data back. Now, event-driven APIs are different. There, instead of that pull model, I want to pull some data from you, in this case, an order confirmation, I'm going to push data to whoever's interested in. That brings in this idea of publish, subscribe, right? My order management system is going to publish something, and whoever's interested in that update, that event, is going to subscribe to it. And it kind of looks like this. You might have inventory, shipping, even CRM systems, right, with all their different responsibilities, and they're probably interested in different parts of these events. So my order management system is probably going to publish an event like there's an order that's been placed. My inventory system is then going to say, okay, and here's a key point about event-driven. It's my inventory system that is taking responsibility for this. My inventory system is going to say, I need to do something with that order event. I need to allocate some stock. And once the inventory system has allocated that stock, it's going to publish a different event, a stock allocated event. So let's just take a second to think about that then. My order management system's responsibility here is not for calling an API, not for waiting for a response. Its responsibility is to publish some change in the business. My inventory system over here, its responsibility is to listen, subscribe to those order events, and then send further events as a result of that. So the inventory system subscribes to order events. It then publishes a stock event, and the order management system probably subscribes to that stock allocated event. So these two different kind of approaches to things, REST APIs, request response, event-driven APIs, publish, subscribe, asynchronous, are complementary. They're not really here to take over one to take over from another. So REST APIs are great for peer-to-peer data exchange, or even passing a control. So for instance, our customer is passing control of his order process to the order management system. Event APIs, and notice this from the diagram on the right here, are good for one-to-many distribution. Okay, so you've got a single update, an order has been placed, and it's being sent to multiple systems. Event-driven APIs are great for distribution of time-sensitive info too. Real time, right? So one of the difficulties with the REST API is that it's great for passing control and saying, oh, here's an update. But when you are waiting for that update, you have to constantly poll. You have to continually call an API. That creates extra load. You have to decide on a polling interval, and that polling interval decides the frequency at which your data is updated. So we need a way of managing both these approaches, right? And we need a way of exposing these access to our systems to third parties, whether they're internal to us or external. Now, if we think about our order management system here, there may be other stakeholders here. We might have price comparison websites that are interested in a new product being available. Our third-party shipping providers may want to interface with our shipping system, but may want advanced notification that an order has been placed. And what's great about this event-driven approach is that they can just connect in to our event broker. They can connect into our event mesh and listen to those updates without any of the other systems that are involved in this e-commerce platform being aware of that. And that's key to the agility aspect. We don't have to adjust APIs. We don't have to add extra steps into a synchronous chain of calls. Okay, so how do we tie this into the whole API products, event API products? Okay, so probably most of us know this. Certainly Gartner are very keen on this. They talk about the idea of API products delivering this idea of the composable enterprise, right? Where you're able to put together subsystems to create some kind of business interface. And frequently you can sell these business interfaces. So a good example is in the IoT space, you have vehicle manufacturers actually selling IoT data from their vehicles back to the subsystem manufacturers, because the subsystem manufacturers are starting to build machine learning algorithms for things like autonomous cars. So if we think about then, the API products are bundles of related APIs that serve a particular business function. So we're bundling together lumps of system capabilities that serve a business function. Now, an API product delivers a synchronous REST API, and we're talking about long-term value here. So we're talking about something that is going to be delivered and probably managed as a product, right? So this is all about products. This is not a short-term business, a short-term technical need. This is a long-term product that we may even monetize. So we need a product manager who's going to deliver a roadmap, price it, lifecycle manager. So what do we do about event-driven APIs? Well, obviously we can expose these events to people and we can expose them via an API. And really the only difference between an API product and an event API product is just the way it's delivered. An API product is delivered via REST API. An event API product is delivered via this event-driven methodology. So it's this push model, this publish subscribe model. Okay, so we've got that idea of event-driven APIs. Let's have a look at event API products. Let's think about how we might construct this. So in an organization, typically you have layers of events. I'll come on to that a bit, but let's have a look about how this might look. We have our application. So we have our order management system here that's got a REST interface for placing orders. And then we've got events such as I've received an order has been processed, an order has been shipped. We might have a warehouse system that allocates stock, indicates when a product has reached the shelves. We might have a product catalog that's tied in with our marketing team that says when something is ready to sell. We might have marketing operations that are launching promotions, kind of buy one, get one free. So we've got this list of events from these different applications here. But if we look at our external applications, what we might want to deliver to someone across our business or even outside our business to a third party. If you take the example of somebody who's actually shipping our products from our e-commerce website, they're going to be interested in these receive, process, and ships events, probably also the stock allocated events. You can expand this, of course. Inventory management is probably going to listen to those events there, and our price comparison tool is probably interested in the product was ready to sell and a promotion that's been launched. Now, if you think about this, you could just expose these individual events to these external applications. But actually, what we can do is, in the same way that we might bundle REST APIs together in an API product, we can do that with event API products. We can bundle related sets of events that fulfill a specific business purpose. And if we do this, and if we provide them as a product, as a single product, rather than just a collection of events, we can then look into our event-driven assets and start curating them. We can start looking, okay, perhaps this event here is not just a system technical event, it's a high-value business event. And this gives our customers, whether that's across the business or external to the business, this, because they're consuming events now, that gives them that real-time data. Remember I mentioned earlier about that idea of event-driven being very good for real-time data because there's no problem. That gives us the ability to do this kind of rapid decision-making at the time. Once we are starting to look at events as a product, as a bundle of products, we can start thinking about how we're going to evolve that product, not just the individual events, but the product as a whole. So if you kind of move that view of things, if we look at our received, process, shipped, and stock allocated events, if we can bundle them together into an API product called order status. Similarly, we can look at our inventory event API product. We can look at our product pricing API product. And what we've done is taken a collection here of disparate events from disparate systems, bundled them up and created a single product. Now, it turns out that there's actually really an easy way of exposing these products. It's via an open standard called Async API, and that is an open standard we can ship to our third party that gives us everything they need to be able to consume these events. So that's great, right? We can create an event API product, and that gives us a single place that we can expose it to our customers. Great. So a different way of looking at this is how we might take our kind of range of events that we have across our organization and start kind of pushing them up the value chain. So typically we start at the bottom, we have our system events. So for instance, log data. Extremely useful, can't do without it. You need it for your system, but it's not really a high value business event. So then we might look at something, a layer we call enterprise events, which is really taking some of those system events and recognizing that they have a higher degree of value for our particular enterprise. So we might look at our promotion launched event, for instance. We then obviously we bundle them up, our enterprise events, because they have that higher business, higher value. We can bundle them up into our event API products, and then hopefully with our open standards, we can start shipping them into a developer portal, right? And if you look at this, this is very similar to the way we might treat an API product. So obviously, as we go up this chain here, the more value from a business perspective the events have, and the more we wish to expose them to our customers. So how are we going to actually do that? Well, at Solace, we believe we're first to market with technology that really allows you to do this. And really, the chain of things is to discover. First of all, we need to know what's across our event estate. We look at our system events. We need to discover exactly what they are. So we need a way of interrogating our event-driven architecture and finding out what all of the events are. Once we've done that, and once we've brought them into some kind of tooling where we can assess them, we can start looking at the usability and value of them. So we can start looking at elevating our system events up to that kind of enterprise category. Now, once we've done that, we need to start this kind of idea of curation. So we start bundling some of these enterprise events into our event API product. But that's not the only task. Obviously, we've got to think about things like documentation. We've got to think about things like a lifecycle management. How are we going to start productizing these bundles of events? Right? Now, hopefully, once we've done that, we can expose them to our customer. So we need to release them, right? And that's when we can start deriving this real business value for them. And that's great. But as with every product, right, that's not the end of the story. We need to start managing and I mean product managing these event API products. So that means defining a life cycle, defining a deprecation period, evolving these products with the needs of our customers. And so we need to be able to kind of iterate rapidly on this and do this. Speed is key here because we're trying to bring a product to market. So anything we can do in the tooling domain to help speed up these different stages is going to help us a lot. So Solace's approach to this is what we call Event Portal. It's very much modeled on the whole API portal model. So if you look at the left-hand side, you have event brokers. Event brokers are what you construct an event mesh with. They're the runtime in much the same way that an API gateway is the runtime for your API product. Typically on top of an API gateway, you might have an API management solution, an API designer portal, and that's where PubSub Plus Event Portal comes in. It's a layer on top of our event brokers so that it can interrogate them. Now, Event Portal is intended to be event broker agnostic. So at the moment, for instance, it interacts with Kafka, Confluent, and your cloud kind of Kafka brokers, as well as Solace's PubSub Plus broker. And once you've got that into that event portal, this is an example of bringing some of those systems events out. So this is our Acme Rideshare application here, which if you sign up for one of our demos, which you can do, you'll see. And you can see here in our designer view, you can see the flow of events from the left-hand side, applications, passenger application, for instance. You can see the events flowing across to the applications on the right-hand side and then flowing back again. So it's a great way of visualizing those event streams from an application point of view. And it's very useful for architects and developers to develop their event-driven applications. But we're talking about event API products. So how does this work here? Well, I mentioned those 5 steps. So our first step is to discover our system events. Now, we provide you with a discovery agent that enables you to probe into your event broker and bring out those system events. Once you've done that, you upload those events that you've discovered into the event portal, and you can start associating those events with things like endpoints, whatever they might be. So it could be a Kafka topic, it could be a PubSub Plus topic, it could be a PubSub Plus queue, for instance. You can start associating them with applications. And once you've done that, you can start drawing together these event flows so that you can visualize what's going on. And then from that, you can use an event catalog. And this is the point where you hook in and start doing that curation stage, right? You can pick out events that can be bundled together for a product. You can start looking at which of these events are those enterprise level high value events, right? So once you've done that, we need to start thinking about event API products. And we provide this facility here where you can select the events that you're going to bundle up for your event API product. And remember, these are events. So it's easy and tempting to think of you pushing those events out, but that's not necessarily true. You might be consuming events too. You might be subscribing to those events. So our event API product here enables you to select whether you're going to be subscribing or publishing to those events. So you bring them into this bundle, decide what you're going to do with them. So you select those events, right? Once you've done that, you're starting to produce this event API product. Well, we now need to be able to release them to application consumers. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to create this async API spec, which is a bit like an open API spec, you kind of YAML file that describes an API product. It's the same for this asynchronous publish subscribe event world. But because we're event driven, right, we don't just want to dump a file that can be outdated. We're going to provide you with a REST API where you can go and grab the latest version of the spec, or we'll even host that async API spec for you. Okay, so summing up then, event API products are the event-driven asynchronous version of API products, which are of course the REST synchronous way of interfacing with your business. The two are complementary. One is not intended to take over or supplant the other. Your API products are great when you need a synchronous interaction when you're talking one-to-one, when you're passing control. Event API products are great when you need asynchronous real-time updates, when there are multiple systems, multiple partners in an exchange of data. By bundling our events together as a product, that improves our ability to expose them to a customer in a coherent way. So you can document the product rather than the individual events. We believe in Solace, we're the first to really introduce this capability. We would love to talk to you more about this. Please do remember that my colleagues Vidya and Tazif will hosting a workshop directly after this talk. They'll run you through how they're actually going to do this. It's really cool. I've seen it. Please do join. And that really is all I wanted to say. So I look forward to your questions.
Fabulous. Thanks, Tom. That's it's really well done and right on time. So yeah, great work. Look, I've got a couple of questions. One, I'd love to get your take, given your position. Event-driven architectures. I think I was reading in an InfoQ article. They published those, maturity, adoption maturity curves and so forth. And I believe they recently placed in the late adopter category, right? So which means that it's not only safe, everyone's done it, the whole 9 yards. Could you, from Solace's perspective, or maybe from an industry perspective, could you just talk a bit about how you see that adoption in, we're in India, all right? How do you see that in India, but perhaps in Asia Pacific in general?
Yeah, okay. So it's worth just a minute of kind of history here. So I think many people probably are either new or newish to this whole event-driven idea. It's actually really old. It started in the 80s in the financial markets. If you think about your stock ticker, that's kind of an event-driven system. It's not really, kind of computerized event-driven system. But in the kind of the financial revolutions of the early to mid 80s, when markets started producing these market data, it's called, right? That's all event-driven. You don't say, what's the current price and wait for the response to come back. You say, I'm interested in this particular share, and then the exchange starts sending you that data as updates. Oh, a sale has happened and the price has changed. Here's what happened. Right? So in terms of a kind of understood technology, it's pretty mature. It's been around for a long time now. What we've seen is it being in Solace, we started up in the early 2000s. We've seen it widely adopted across the financial services industries across the world because they understood it. It's really been in the last, 5 to 10 years where it's started to pick up a bit more across other industries. So industries like airline data, industries like pharmaceuticals, consumer packaged goods, the more retail financial services industry. And certainly in India, I think where we're seeing a lot of adoption is picking up from, obviously India's got this great technology sector, right? And that's really picking up these architectural choices that are coming from either the financial services industry or the more kind of Silicon Valley based technology companies, right? India's really absorbing them. I think India is leading Asia Pac, frankly, in that regard because of that effect. But Asia Pacific tends to be picking up more around the smart cities and IoT side of things. That's where the real action is in Asia Pacific. If you look at Oceania, obviously that's a bit more resource driven. So a lot of the resource sectors there are picking up event driven because, they've got some of the biggest resource companies in the world. Wow, that was a quick overview of the event-driven market. There you go.
Yeah, fabulous. Look, it lines up with what I'm seeing as well. So based here in Australia, whenever I talk about EDA, everyone looks at me like I'm insane and talking some foreign language. So I think that lines up very nicely. Cool. And Ashlyn tells me I have 1 more minute, so I'm gonna throw in 1 more question here.
Right.
So there's a massive proliferation in the IT sector into an open source stance. There's a wonderful open source platform, I guess, donated by Spotify called Backstage, right? And Backstage is basically this engineering dashboard, if you will. And looking at what you showed, which is the event portal, that is something that because we use events in our world. One of the things that I'm missing is a way to catalog and even discover what events are happening, where they're happening, which services produce what events, which services consume what events, such that if I go change an event, what are the downstream effects of making that change?
Right.
So, yeah.
Sorry, just to pick up on that. So Suraj in the previous session talked about this. As an event publisher, you're responsible for it. That's a key part of this event-driven architecture, is actually the organizational effect. It's a change of control and responsibility. So the subscribers are responsible for saying, I'm interested in this event and dealing with it. So how do you deal with the fact that a subscriber wants to change the schema, or the publisher wants to change completely what he's doing, right? Well, you have to have some kind of management. You have to have some kind of governance. And that's really what Event Portal is all about, right? It's because what it does is if you look at this, sorry, I'll just skip back. If you look at these flow views here, you can immediately identify the downstream events, right? And one of our features on the roadmap is something that does that automatically for you. So you can say, if I change this event, what are the downstream effects? Yeah, and another feature that's inherent in Solace has this hierarchical dynamic topic format is you can version the topics. And that means you can parallel run with different versions of events. And that's very powerful. That's a way of evolving your architecture.
Fantastic. Okay, I think I might have to go look at this in more detail. So I might attend that next session of yours.
Please do. Quick reminder, my colleagues Vidya and Tazif are going to run you through in the workshop track, run you through using event API products and actually creating one. So great session.
And your colleagues have added that onto the public chat. So I think that is up and running. Tom, thank you very much for your time. And I'm sure if there are further questions, your team will handle them well. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Akil.